Peace, everybody out there. We are now live. A little late tonight. I've been on time pretty much lately, so y'all should forgive me being a couple of minutes tonight. I see a lot of y'all waiting in the chat. Welcome back. We're going back to back days on Black Magic 363. We're closing out the week tomorrow with A.A. Rashid. His presentation is called Phonetic Fingerprints of the Gods. That's tomorrow night. Then we're closing it out Saturday with Dr. Boyce Watkins, and that brother's going to give us some financial literacy, stocks, all that types of stuff. So yeah, keep your, stay up with the channel. We got 3 more days, and then I'm gonna take a little break. You know what I'm saying? But tonight's going to be a magnificent presentation. Billy Carson, man, welcome back to the channel, my brother. You ain't been here in a little while.
Good to be back. It's great to be back, man. A lot of great things been happening. Man, I see your channel still booming, man. You got a lot of great guests on. I'm happy for you, man. You're doing phenomenal.
Yo, you see, you billionaire Billy, and I got the "We Need More Black Billionaires" shirt on, man.
Hey,
shout out to I got this from Bed-Stuy Fly in Brooklyn. So that's a black-owned business. They sell a clothing business. So if you want some fly stuff, some of the y'all see me with the Success sweater on yesterday when I was with Red Pill, and y'all asked where I get it from. That's Bed-Stuy Fly in Brooklyn, New York. You can Google it, and you can order from them over the internet. But shout out to them for being a local black business in the Brooklyn community. Family. Let's get to a couple of ads. I want you to make sure you hit the like button. That's very important to the algorithm, family. Please make sure you hit the like button so that people can find out that we are live right now. So everybody make sure you hit the like button, all right? I appreciate it. I see King Simon in the chat. Shout out to my brother. Yeah, shout out to my brother King Simon. And speaking of King Simon, you got to go over to King Simon's. He got a workshop on Udemy. You can text him your full name and date of birth to his phone number 347-496-1022. You could get a numeration reading. But the brother got it going on. One of the best when it comes to numerology. Shout out King Simon. Also, make sure y'all visit Black Magic University. The cosmos is heating up right now, family. The solar flares is popping. Radio signals is being sent out that they've never seen or heard before, man. It's live right now in the cosmos, and as above, so below. Since it's live in the cosmos, it's live on Black Magic 363. Billy Carson had to come through. We get some ancient history today. Billy, before you start, you got a great presentation you want to show to the people. Before you start, Billy, I always heard debates about ancient Kemet versus ancient Sumerian and who came first.
Right.
And then when people talk about ancient Kemet, people usually say, yo, ancient Sumerian is more ancient than that. Then the ancient Kemetic people say, like, nah, it's not about this. I just always heard a back and forth between ancient Kemet and ancient Sumeria. I've studied ancient Kemet way more than I've studied ancient Sumeria. Tonight, your presentation is going to that particular time period and ancient Sumeria. Could you tell us what you're getting ready to go into tonight, my brother?
Yeah, definitely. I'm going to talk about Mesopotamia, okay, which really was an extended part of Africa back in the day. Right. So Mesopotamia is Africa. Of course, now with the new boundary lines and all that kind of stuff, it kind of falls out into what they call the Middle East, but in Iraq. But all that was all part of Africa thousands and thousands of years ago. And I'm going to be talking about one of the very first cultures that we know that existed, not the first, but one of the first, the Sumerian culture. But the Sumerian culture really, what they did was they copied a lot of tablets over and over and over again through the years to keep the knowledge of what happened even deeper antiquity. Some of these stories go back to the beginning of the creation of the solar system itself. That's how ancient they are. And they describe in great detail how every planet and moon came to be. And now modern science is actually scratching their head. Astrophysicists are scratching their head because they're going, holy crap. The Enuma Elish is telling the exact story that we just discovered in modern science on how everything came here. And so it's like it's a mind-blowing situation. So it really is an amazing story. It's an epic. It's a true epic, and it's scientific. It's esoteric, and it's really educational. You can really learn a lot from the Enuma Elish, and who translated them is also another big thing in question. So I'm going to talk about that too.
Excellent, excellent. Definitely look forward to tonight, family. Get your pens and your papers. Make sure you pay close attention. This is more than entertainment, family. This is DNA awakening information right here. All right, let me know when you're ready to put it on the screen, and I'll put it on the screen, Billy.
Okay, yeah. Let me get the slides up, and I am ready to share my screen. Let's see.
Oh, before you start, somebody want to know, what do you think about the artificial sun? You know, that China talked about.
Yeah, well, that wasn't an artificial sun. Well, China made an artificial sun. Yeah, they made it in a laboratory. And that laboratory on that chamber that they made it in is a torus underground, deep underground. It has to be. And so they did create an artificial sun, and it is real. It's really, artificial sun is a terminology is given to it, but it's really, it's a power plant. They created a power plant through fusion. Okay, they found a way to create nuclear fusion and contain the explosion. What is a sun? A sun is a contained explosion, where you have heavier elements fusing together, and you have them creating this energy, this vibrant energy. So now there was an image that was gone out, a video that had gone out like a little bit after, showing this sun floating into the sky with what looked like Asian people watching it on their cell phones, and they launched the sun into the sky. That was a hoax. That was actually, that was a hoax. Okay. Yeah, they just took that was a sunset that was played either in reverse, but it was an old video from a long time ago when people were outside watching a sunset go down, and somebody took that and they manipulated it, and they moved it around a little bit, and let it look like it was going up into the sky. That was just a sunset. There's no way, shape, or form can you keep a containment of a nuclear fusion by just opening it up and throwing it out in the atmosphere. You'll lose containment. What will happen is you'll have an explosion. You have to keep it contained. So that containment is usually deep under the ground. Okay. So that was just a hoax video that went viral, and everybody started running around posting that thing everywhere. But that was just a sunset that was manipulated.
Okay, that's what. Okay.
Yeah, nobody threw a sun up into the sky and all this kind of crazy stuff. Yeah, we got to do a little more research. Okay. All right, so I'm going to share my screen and get into this PowerPoint. Let's see if I can find which one I got. Here we go. This one. And it's not going to be too long, but I'm going to let me share my screen let me start my slideshow from this slide, because this is actually a 5-hour presentation on this slide. I need 5 hours tonight. I'm gonna start right here. Okay, the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation. Now, those of you who follow me have seen me hold up the Enuma Elish. I actually have the text. Right, I've studied this text. I've read this text up, down, inside out, backwards and forward. I just did a whole lecture at the Conscious Life Expo in LA just 2 days ago on this particular topic, and we read the entire Enuma Elish in that workshop, and I showed the graphics of the planetary formations that are being described via the Enuma Elish, and how those images, those videos, were from modern science.
Billy, real quick before you start, so this came. We're always familiar with seeing things in ancient Egypt. Is this before ancient Kemet, or is this?
This is before ancient Kemet. This is before the flood. So if you go into the tablets, you discover that there was an ancient civilization in deep, deep antiquity that had risen to a high level, that was ruled over by these quote unquote gods. They weren't really gods. They were people that masqueraded as gods, but this pantheon of Anunnaki. And according to these tablets, these people were here about 450,000 years ago. That's the beginning of when they start writing this story. So this is some really ancient stuff, like deep, deep, deep antiquity. It talks about in the Sumerian kings list that, after these king, after these 8 kings ruled for a few 100,000 years, crazy numbers. One king ruled for 14,000 years. One king ruled for 28,800 years. And then after the great flood came and swept over the land and destroyed everything, then they built the land of Kim and gave kingship to pharaohs or kings, half human, half Anunnaki is what they call them. They call them demigods. And then from there, those people, they helped them reestablish the land in the land of Kim. They basically relocated their base of operations, put it there, and that became a high level of civilization, which even reached its own golden age, way before the dynastic era of Egypt. And then you had the dynastic era of Egypt after that. So, unfortunately, people want to get into this battle about who was first. The truest thing is you'll never find out who's first, because no matter how far back you go, you'll find that it was always somebody else. And so always somebody else and always somebody else.
Right.
And so it was even somebody was before the Sumerians, and even if you go back to the beginning of this planet is a piece of a chunk of Tiamat. When Earth blew up, when Tiamat exploded, Earth was a chunk that broke off of it. Tiamat is now the asteroid belt. That's what the asteroid belt is. The asteroid belt is actually an exploded planet from back in the day, millions of years ago. A big chunk of it swung away and became the Earth. But so even you go back on Earth, you find out that even we weren't the first. We were part of something else. I mean, the further back you go, it's always something before you. So the best thing to do is to stop worrying about who came first, the chicken or the egg, and just find out how great and magnificent we all can be and have been before in the past. And I think if we understand that and focus on that, we can regain our sovereignty, regain our magnificence. So the Enuma Elish and the 7 tablets of creation, you're looking at them right here on my screen. These are 7 tablets written in cuneiform. They actually do exist, and you can go see them with your own eyes in the British Museum. So the Enuma Elish is Akkadian cuneiform, and it's the Babylonian creation myth. It was recovered by Austin Henry Layard in 1849 in the ruined library of Ashurbanipal at Nineveh, which is now Moscow, Iraq. And it was published by George Smith in 1876. Now that's an important date because that predates the birth of Zecharia Sitchin. So a lot of people, when Zecharia Sitchin was alive, they're sort of saying, oh, this guy is the only one that can translate these tablets, and nobody knows what they're really saying, and he's making this all up. Those are actually all lies. Zecharia Sitchin never translated Sumerian tablets. He never claimed to be the translator of the tablets. He used existing translations that existed long before he was even born. And he gives you the resources, he gives you the references in every book that he's ever written where he gets his contextual information for his stories. Now, was Zecharia Sitchin's story 100% accurate? Probably not. But the consensus is all the same from all the researchers, including myself, who read the tablets ourselves. People came here from somewhere else, and they engaged mankind at some point, began creating a breakaway civilization on this planet, and mined this planet for resources using human beings mostly as slaves, unfortunately. And now it's not just him, it's thousands of people are coming to the same conclusion after analyzing these same texts. But 1876, George Smith had already translated these tablets. These go way back before he was even born. That's important to understand, because the first thing people are going to say, oh, this all made up stuff. No, it's not. And we're going to go a little deeper into that also. The Enuma Elish has about 1,000 lines and is recorded in Old Babylonian on 7 clay tablets, each holding between 115 and 170 lines of Sumero-Akkadian cuneiform script. Most of Tablet 5 had never been recovered until recently. Tablet 5 was discovered at the Somalia Museum in Iraq recently. Now, what's interesting about Tablet 5, it makes it so important, is because tablet number 5 talks about the Ijiji Anunnaki, the people that were the working class beings that were forced to work on the planet Mars. So now we have a basis for people being on Mars, and we have a basis for Mars being the god of war, because they decided to have a coup and go against the kings of the earth, Enki and Enlil and Anu, and they wanted to start a war and go to war against them, which eventually did happen much later. The war was staved off one time, but they couldn't keep the war from happening. This epic is one of the most important sources for understanding the Babylonian worldview, centered on the supremacy of Marduk, that's Amun-Ra, and the creation of humankind for the service to the gods. Its primary original purpose, however, is not an exposition of theology or theology, but the evolution of Marduk, the chief god of Babylon, above all other Mesopotamian gods. This guy, Marduk, who's also known as Amun-Ra, he's known as Marduk in the Bible and the Torah, right? This guy is one of the most evil, brutal people brutal rulers of all time, very egotistical. He made the actual statements. There will be no other God but me. That made it into the Bible. I am a jealous God. That made it into a Bible. I do it the good and the evil. That also made it into the Bible. That was this guy, Marduk. He's a brother of Thoth, actually, believe it or not. One was good. One was pretty bad dude. When you hear the word God in the lectures, or anytime you hear me reference the word gods, I'm not talking about the creator of the universe, because I believe there's a creator of the universe. I'm just saying that these people in these tablets didn't create any universe. They masqueraded as gods. They weren't real gods. Okay, just so you can keep an understanding in your head. If you hear me say the word God, I'm not talking about the creator of the universe. This is tablet number 5 from the Sumerian Museum in Iraq, a real important piece to the puzzle, which talks about the fact that there were people living on Earth and on Mars at the same time. There were 2 civilizations running concurrently in this solar system, Earth and Mars both together, according to the tablets. Not according to Billy Carson, not according to what I think, according to what these tablets say. So here's a little bit more on George Smith. Okay, so he lived from 1840 to 1876. He was an English Assyriologist, apprentice engraver, but self-taught in cuneiform in the corridors of the British Museum. Eventually, he was hired by Sir Henry Rawlinson, a prominent archaeologist, and Smith achieved worldwide attention when he discovered an account of the flood in the obvious biblical parallels in 1872, related in the Chaldean account of the deluge. So he saw a parallel similarity between 2 different texts talking about this same flood. The same flood that's talked about also in the Emerald Tablets. This book expands on the previous work and presents numerous translations of tablets, including the first print appearance of the Epic of Gilgamesh. So the Epic of Gilgamesh, which is a huge epic, which talks about the real Noah, the real true story of Noah. The full epic includes Gilgamesh, who was a person that was half Anunnaki and half human, who goes on this hero's journey that was ordered for him to go on by Enlil. He even leaves Earth and goes to another planet, which is his ancestors' planet. He wanted to become a part of that civilization, and they denied him. The Epic of Gilgamesh is huge, and it's taught in universities. You can actually read it online for free. So let's look at E.A. Spicer. Okay, in 1926, E.A. Spicer won a Guggenheim Fellowship to study remains of the ancient Mitanni and Hurrians in northern Mesopotamia. While there in 1927, he discovered the Tepe Guara, one of the world's earliest cradles of civilization, and in 1928, he was appointed assistant professor of Semitics at the University of Pennsylvania, and the full professor in 1931. He was field director of the Joint Excavation of the American Schools of Oriental Research and the University Museum in 1930 to 1932, 1936 to 1937, undertaking excavations at Tepe Guara and Tel Bila. He also translated the Hurrian legal text found at Nutsi. After the war, he returned to the University of Pennsylvania, where he was chairman of the Department of Oriental Studies from 1947 until his death in 1965. He was also appointed Ellis Professor of Hebrew and Semitic Languages and Literatures in 1954. He translated and wrote extensive commentary for the volume on Genesis in the Anchor Bible series, and was one of the editors of the Torah in the New Jewish Publication Society of America version of the Old Testament. A noted student of his was Moshe Greenberg, who became an Israel Prize laureate in Bible studies. And this guy, E.A. Spicer, had also translated the Enuma Elish. I'm reading you these people's credentials so you can see that these texts and tablets, they really did exist. They weren't a fabrication of Zechariah Sitchin or anybody else, that they're real information that can contain real historical value that has been handed down from generation to generation on these stone tablets. One more before we end it. Leonard William King, okay, this guy translated these tablets. He was an English Assyriologist, and he was educated at Rugby School at King's College in Cambridge. He collected stone inscriptions widely in the Near East, taught Assyrian and Babylonian archaeology at King's College for a number of years, and published a large number of works on these subjects. He was also known for his translations of ancient works such as the Code of Hammurabi, which is a great text. He became the assistant to the keeper of the Egyptian and Assyrian antiquities at the British Museum. Some of his first works: First Steps in Assyrian, a book for beginners, being a series of historical, mythological, religious, magical, and pastoral other texts printed in cuneiform characters with interlinear transliteration and translation, and a sketch of Assyrian grammar, silence, and vocabulary. Letters and Inscriptions of Hammurabi, 1898. Encyclopedia Biblica, 1903. Egypt and Western Asia in the Light of Recent Discoveries, 1907. Chronicles Concerning Early Babylonian Kings, 1907. Legends of Babylonian Egypt in relation to Hebrew tradition, 1916. The 7 Tablets of Creation. They say that this is what we're talking about right now. He translated those, the Babylonian and Syrian legends concerning the creation of the world and of mankind, 1902. The Code of Hammurabi, 1899. Again, another person before Zecharia Sitchin with credentials out of this world that translated these tablets, the Enuma Elish and the Epic of Atrahasis as well, which give a very similar story. 2 different tablets, 2 different time periods telling the same exact story. And you can go to the, this is here from the Library of Ashurbanipal, but you can see these tablets at the British Museum. They really do exist, and you can translate these tablets yourself. So anyone who wants to know what these tablets say, and they don't want to go on scholars, they don't want to worry about this race of person translating and that race of person translating them, you can go for free to the UCLA CDLI Cuneiform Digital Library online. You can just Google it, UCLA Cuneiform Library. You can go there, you can grab stones on the virtual shelf, and you can drop them into the translator and translate the stones yourself and read them for yourself and come up with your own interpretations. You don't need me, you don't need anybody else. It's free. So the stones are real, they exist, the tablets are real, the information on them is incredible historical knowledge and value, and they give a huge story. I can't play this because that might tag your Gram account for your YouTube account for that was played on YouTube already once before. But that was one of the professors at the British Museum showing you how cuneiform is written. I'll make my own video on it very, very soon. And you can see this is the Torah, the law of God. And a lot of these figures and these characters from ancient Mesopotamia, people always say, well, how come I didn't hear about these people in the Bible? Well, they're in there. They're in the Torah too. A lot of people don't read them. And because they didn't read the tablets, they didn't know they existed before the Bible or the Torah. But you can see where I highlighted here, for example, Marduk in the Ancient Jewish History Library. You can see how many times Marduk name shows up in this text, right? That's Amun-Ra. And you can do the same thing with Enki and so forth. These people were recorded in these texts. And well, they say, well, how come the Anunnaki ain't in the Bible? They're not called the Anunnaki. They're called the Anak. And in their sight, we were grasshoppers, according to the biblical text. In other words, we were puny. They were giant as gigantic pine trees, or whatever it says. So these people are recorded in the more modern copies of history, but in ancient texts, they are there as well. And one more thing before I end this is the 2 trillion Hubble Skybook. And so what scientists did, they took the Hubble telescope and they looked at a tiny point in the sky and they found 2 trillion galaxies, not planets, galaxies in a dot, in a pin. That's how incredible this universe is. We have so many galaxies out there. And what these galaxies do, they actually collide from time to time. And why is that important? Because you see here where we are in this Milky Way. You see the dot, you see where it says sun, that's our sun right there. We're in one of these outer bands, kind of in the nice suburbs of the Milky Way galaxy where things are a little bit calmer. All right, because the closer you go in towards the center, things become a lot more, there's a lot more entropy, there's a lot more turmoil because of the speed. Everything increases in speed as you get closer to the center. The further out, things move a little bit slower. Time even moves slower the further out. So we're in like a little bit of a calmer section of the Milky Way. However, how did we get here? Scientists now know that we are not from here. Imagine the shock of growing up in a loving family with people you call mom and dad, and then suddenly learning that you were actually adopted. This is the sense of shock that came as scientists announced that the sun, the moon, and our planets and its siblings were not born to the familiar band of stars known as the Milky Way galaxy, but we actually belong to a strange formation with the unfamiliar name of the Sagittarius dwarf galaxy. This is now peer-reviewed science. This is now taught in astrophysics in college right now. They changed all the history books already. Our solar system is not from the Milky Way. We were dropped into this position because two galaxies merged. One was the Sagittarius dwarf, and one was the Milky Way, and we merged. We came from Sagittarius. And how did they know this? Using volumes of data from the 2-micron all-sky survey in 2-mass. So I love using 2-mass infrared when I go into telescopes. I love the 2-mass infrared mode because digital telescopes, you can see what the eye can't see, different wavelengths. Anyway, a major project to survey the sky in infrared light led to the University of Massachusetts. The astronomers are answering questions that have been baffling scientists for decades and proving that our own Milky Way is consuming one of its neighbors in a dramatic display of ongoing galactic cannibalism. The study, published in the Astrophysical Journal, is the first to map the full extent of the Sagittarius galaxy and show in its visually vivid detail how its debris wraps around and passes through our Milky Way, and Sagittarius is 10,000 times smaller in mass than the Milky Way, so it's getting stretched out, torn apart, and gobbled up by the bigger Milky Way galaxy. And this is what it looks like. So this is actually from the science book, the astrophysics book. When you go out in a night sky and you're looking up at the sky with no light pollution and you see all those stars going across the top of we thought was the Milky Way, in all these TV shows and movies and photographs, you're like, oh, that's the Milky Way galaxy. That's us. This is part of our... No, we were wrong. We were actually wrong the whole time. This is all peer-reviewed science now. It's all been proven. What you're looking at is this where this loop happens. At the top, you're looking at that loop of Sagittarius. And where Sagittarius drops directly into and is being gobbled up by the Milky Way, at the exact point where it connects is exactly where our solar system is located. And this is taking billions of years to happen. But our solar system itself, we ourselves, our planet itself, and all the planets in this solar system orbiting our sun are all aliens. None of us are from here. Not one planet, not one moon is from this solar system. We were dropped into place here because of a merger of Sagittarius and the Milky Way. Pretty interesting stuff. And all of this is in the ancient tablets. I can't play that because it might ping you as well. But this is another tablet, and this is the last one that enhances, that is more evidence, more circumstantial evidence for these stories. It's the Atrahasis epic, or the Epic of Atrahasis. Again, you can read this online for free. You can buy the book from Amazon, which has already translated it for you. Or you could take the stone and drop it in a translator and read it for yourself. But it is the same story, the creation of the solar system, which is a big detail. I would have to need another 3 hours to go into that detail. But these ancient tablets and texts talk about the creation of the planets, talk about the fact that there was a tumultuous period in the creation of the solar system, and that planets and moons were coming in from another place and merging in with this. The whole story is there. It's an incredible story. It even talks about how Uranus got tilted on its side. Uranus doesn't orbit on its axis, and the equator isn't this way. The equator is this way. It's actually tumbling this way. And how Saturn and Neptune switched positions gravitationally because something passed through that was so massive it caused them to switch positions in our solar system. And also what went so close to Mercury, it almost made Mercury stop spinning on its axis completely. All of this has now been scientifically proven in astrophysics, and all that perfectly aligns with what the Enuma Elish says. It tells the exact same story, almost verbatim, exactly how we got merged here, and all the tumultuous periods, all the collisions of moons and stars and planets and everything else, the mess and how everything recoalesced and became what we call now the current solar system, is all in these ancient tablets. And then it talks about the creation of man, or the genetic modification of man, not a creation, but the genetic modification of man. And then it talks about, the fact that mankind's purpose, or Homo sapiens purpose, was to serve the gods. And what better way to make a slave than to make somebody worship you and not know that they're a slave? They would do the work for free in honor of you. And that's exactly what happened. But it's incredible, man. This is incredible stories. I'll unshare my screen now. Incredible stories, all in ancient texts and tablets. And it's there for anyone to grab, research, study, and try to digest.
Yeah, very interesting stuff. Definitely interesting stuff. Let me, they say the Milky Way galaxy is merging with I don't know how soon. Yeah, Andromeda. What do you think that would mean for Earth? Will Earth get a new sun? Like, what does that mean?
Yeah, that's a great question. I actually have a video on that, but I don't want to play it on it because it might ping you. Mm-hmm. But it's going to be called Milkomeda. In about 5 billion years, will be merged with Andromeda, will be called Milkomeda. The sky will be full of stars. Like right now, you look up, you see stars way out there, right? When you look up in the sky at night in 5 billion years, if you're here, if you reincarnate again, you back, right? You'll see stars that look almost like you can touch them. They'll be right. They won't be, they're still going to be light years away, but they'll be so big and so close, it'll fill the night sky with stars. There'll be a lot of light, a lot of starlight in 5 billion years when we make that merger with Andromeda. It's going to be amazing.
Wow, man, you ain't coming back to Earth for that one, man. You go.
I might be around, man. I might be. Thoth says he's traveled to many worlds and watched civilizations rise and fall. That's my goal. I want to be able to do the same thing. I want to copy him.
Indeed. Yeah. Do you think, like when you talk about in your book Thoth, and he's talking about reincarnating at will? Do you think like sometimes these higher frequencies entities, they could incarnate in somebody midlife? Like let's say if somebody has a car accident and maybe they don't want to come back here, but maybe another entity comes through their body and takes over their body. Do you think that's possible?
I think that's totally possible. I think that's totally possible. And the reason why is because there's been accounts in ancient texts and and tablets and scriptures and cylinder scrolls where things like that have happened. And when you look at some of these, I think there's different kinds of beings. You have physical, corporeal beings like us that live in the third dimension all throughout the universe. Then you have, I think, multidimensional beings that have the capability of maneuvering from dimension to dimension. So, for example, what keeps us from walking into a higher dimension right now? The dimensions are stacked right on top of each other. We know that in physics, in quantum physics. Why can't we just go into it? Because of frequencies. We're subatomically locked into this frequency. However, if we were to know how to mimic or phase shift our subatomic frequency to match the subatomic frequency of the other dimension, we'd be able to walk right into it or phase right into it. So if our species is only about 200,000 years old, Homo sapiens sapien, even though men are millions of years old. But what if there's beings in another dimension that have been around for 10 billion years of development? They've learned how to phase shift into different dimensions with using technology, maybe a combination of spiritual technology at the same time merged together. We don't know. So I believe that there's capability of doing that, and also maybe even the capability of transferring your consciousness into another body, because Thoth talks about it, but not just him. Many other people, ancient avatars in the past, have talked about doing the same thing. So it's got to be something. These are unrelated people. There's got to be something to this. And there could be potential that somebody could learn how to do it to an active body. A person, like you said, got into a car accident, became unconscious, died, just recently died, and then they get brought back. Maybe whoever, the reboot wasn't really the original person. Right. A lot of those things, the more we put limits on what can happen, I think the more we blind ourselves. I think the possibilities are virtually unlimited.
Yeah, that's interesting. In terms of when we come up with these ideas, we talk about how a lot of times ideas, we're just channeling information like codes that already exist, and we're just bringing it into this realm. Do you think when we come up with these ideas, like let's say mermaids or the Smurfs or these reptilian people, all of these ideas we come up with is influenced by entities that actually exist out there? So like every cartoon we ever thought of, these beings actually exist somewhere out there?
Oh yeah, if we could think of it, it already exists. as you know, that's one of the laws of physics, really, quantum physics, and we're talking about superpositions. So in quantum physics, there's something called a superposition where everything exists in superposition of one another. So that what that really means is every possibility exists simultaneously. Even if we know in quantum physics, dealing with wave-particle duality, how waves collapse into particles and become part of the third dimension, we know that waves exist they exist as multiple potentials. So let's say that the wave that wants to become part of this microphone, for example, it could be part of the computer. It could have been part of the screen. We collapse it into this particular, our consciousness collapses, slows the light down and collapse it into this particular structure right here. But we know that it exists in a multidimensional platform, so it could be anything. And so we're talking about the capability of a multidimensional wave function that can literally be anywhere. So anything that could happen will happen. Any thought you get already exists somewhere else. Anything you conceive or can come up with exists somewhere else already in reality. And so what we're really doing is downloading information on a consistent basis and then discerning it, and then we're putting it out thinking, oh, I just had a great idea. A lot of the times it's already an idea that already existed.
A lot of times when you deal with ancient history, you describe certain wars that took place. It seems like war is the theme of the universe. Like somebody somewhere is constantly at war with each other.
Yeah.
Is that like pretty much what this realm is about? Just straight up war?
That's a great question, man. Listen, I just had this conversation, man. We live in a universe based on consumption, unfortunately. There's a couple ways to look at it. The grim way to look at it would be that we're living in a failed experiment, that this universe is an experiment that's failing. And the reason why is because it's a universe that the person who programmed it decided to base it on consumption. In other words, a lion has to eat a doggone, giraffe or a deer or something for energy. An alligator's got to eat, something, a lion or something drinking at the edge of the lake. It's got to jump up and bite it. We got to eat plants, or we got to eat meat. Everything has to consume something to keep it going, right? Your cars, you got to put electricity in that sucker, or you got to put gas in it. There's no way around it. So this universe is based off of consumption. And so because it's based off of consumption, as above, so below, you're always going to have this yin and yang. You're going to always have this warring mentality where there's darkness and there's light. And even when you go into a golden age, it's for a period of time. And we see that in the Yuga cycles, it's always this rise and fall of civilization up through these ages. And so at some point, even in the golden age, that comes to an end, right? Egypt lost its golden age a couple of times. They were taken over. They didn't have an army. They had no weapons. They didn't have a military police force. And people said, hey, let's just go take these guys because they got nothing. They're over there making art and making music and loving one another. They ain't ready for this. And they went over and stole everything and took over the whole country, right? So this is what happens. And so it's actually in the DNA, unfortunately, this warring mentality, this competitive battling mentality. It's a battle between darkness and light. That's why I tell everybody the biggest thing that we try to do in the conscious community, the biggest thing that we're trying to learn how to master is not to destroy or eradicate evil, because you can't do that. Not in this universe. You can't eradicate evil. It's not going to be eradicated. You can't get rid of it. All you can learn how to do is try to control it. That's the best we can do, is try to control it to the best of our ability. In other words, I can be a monster on the inside. I can be a master in Wing Chun. I can have deadly fists of fury, right? I can know how to use all kind of weapons and guns and knives and everything else, right, for the purpose of defending and killing or hurting people. But that training that I took to learn the Wing Chun, the training I took to learn how to utilize all the guns and everything else, I now have to master controlling impulses in my mind that tell me when somebody does something that pisses me off, don't use this on them. So I have to control the monster inside of myself. And we all have that battle. We all, every single day, have to control that monster inside of us. So even the war is in our own mind. It's inside of our own body. So it's part of the process.
And Indeed. You know, you talk a lot about the Anunnaki coming here to mine for gold. Is gold the currency of the cosmos? Like everybody out there fuck with gold, not just the Anunnaki. Like all the beings, gold is like the currency out there.
Well, you know, the reason the people like gold, and when I say people, I mean spacefaring people, is because gold is technological. See, the illusion that we have is that it's for looking good and it's for, you know, jewelry, and it does look great. It's phenomenal. And it has value. We could take it, we can melt it down and reform it into something else. You know, we can utilize it for exchange and barter. But the reason why they value gold versus why human value gold is totally different. Now, if you look at what the military does with gold, do you remember that project that said we buy gold? It was everywhere. We buy gold all over the place. Yeah. That was a government project. Did you know that? That was a government project. They had already used up all the gold in Fort Knox. They needed more gold. Where did the gold in Fort Knox go? Nobody ever asked. It went into technology. The reason why these space beings need gold is for technology. Gold has amazing properties in electromagnetic devices, in schematic boards, in radiation-hardened computer circuit chips.
Should we electromagnetic devices, man?
We are exactly. That's why I drink the gold every day, my gold water, right? But the interesting thing about it is, if you take a regular copper wire, right, that's let's say 100 feet long, and you put electricity on one side and measure the output of electricity on the other side, it's not going to be the same amount that you put in. It's going to be reduced because of friction. You lose some of that energy. In a gold wire, you get 100% out of what you put in. That's important when you're talking about building a spaceship or building something of super high technology, a superconductor, whatever it is. You need that kind of quality. You want to reflect radiation, you need gold. Gold is an excellent reflector of radiation. That's why they put it on the helmets of spacesuits. They put it on satellite antennas and everything else. So it has these amazing technological purposes that you would need if you wanted to become a spacefaring race, and you need a lot of it. So that's why they collected all that gold. They had already melted down all the ones that was in Fort Knox, and then they made everybody turn in their gold for a couple of pennies. They took that, and then they used that gold as well. So gold is a technological element. But
is Earth the planet that's popping the most with gold? Like, is this the spot?
Really.
No? Okay.
We have a lot. Now, that's a good question, though. Earth has a lot of gold, and Earth will never stop producing gold. There's no such thing as peak gold. In other words, we're never going to run out of gold. The reason why we're not going to run out of gold is because the Earth is abiotic. The Earth makes gold. The Earth will never run out of oil. Oil is not because of a whole bunch of dead plants that happened from, the Cretaceous period. That's fake news. Oil is the blood of the Earth itself. That's why when a well goes dry, if you come back in 20 years, guess what? There's oil in that sucker again. You know why? Because the Earth is making the oil. The Earth is making the diamonds. The Earth is making the gold. It's part of the actual body of the Earth. The Earth is actually alive. It's an actual sentient living being, and it's making gold. Now, it's one of the best producing in this region of the sector of the galaxy, the best producing planets for gold. And Mars has huge gold veins that have been caught on the satellite. So they know that there's a wealth of there are trillions and trillions of dollars of gold on Mars also. And there also are meteors that have quadrillions of dollars worth of elements on them. So, there's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of money out there in space.
What do you, we talk a lot about the sun that we see in the sky all the time. Have you heard anything about the history of the sun in the center of the earth? 600 miles, a 600-mile sun remember the movie Journey to the Center of the Earth? They say that they put all this in the movies. But they get this from actual history and mythology and all that. What do you think about the sun and civilizations? I heard of a city called Shambhala, all this stuff in the center of Earth. What's your thoughts on that?
When I researched Shambhala and really dug into it, I realized it wasn't talking about the center of the Earth, but an opening, an area, an underground cavern that was massive inside of the Earth. So massive that you can fit billions of people in it. You got to realize that on top of the Earth, we're just literally like little ticks covering the top surface. And we think that we're overpopulated. We haven't even tapped into the full potential of the planet. The real potential is the mass that's underneath the ground, where you can literally fit trillions of people. Now, inside of underneath the crust of the earth, there are openings, natural openings, honeycomb-shaped openings that go on for thousands and thousands of miles that can fit billions of people. And in some of these areas, there is actually like underground caverns, water, there's beaches and everything. There's a place, I forget the name of the country now, where you can go and get into one of these, where there's actually an underground beach. Sunlight gets in, it's got its own ecology and everything going. Same exact thing. I don't believe that there's an actual hollow earth and that there's a sun in the center of the earth, but that there actually is underground areas that open up to these massive honeycomb openings that can house massive amounts of civilizations underneath the ground.
What's your thoughts on I remember, I don't know if I asked you this before, but I remember when I first came into consciousness, there used to be guys on the street, Nuwabians, and they studied under Dr. Malachi Z. York. Have you ever heard of Dr. York?
Yeah.
Dr. York, they will always tell me about planet Ritz and how I guess I don't want to misquote them, but I think black people were supposed to be from planet Ritz. You ever heard of that planet Ritz? Because I only heard about that from York. I never heard anybody else talk about this planet Ritz. What is that?
Yeah. I've never come across that name in any of the texts, but I believe it's a similar, they're referring to the planet Nibiru. Now, the planet Nibiru is in the Enuma Elish, and so I believe that that's the planet that they're referring to, because if you listen to the whole story that he has about it, it's extremely similar to the same story from the Enuma Elish. It's just that the name is maybe an African version of the name. I'm not sure how they came up with the name. It's like RIQZ or something like that, or RIZQ. Yeah. But it's still talking about the same exact story. It's the same exact story. Just like if you go to other indigenous cultures, they have the same story as the Enuma Elish, but in their own words, in their own, names. And so I think that's what he's referencing. And one thing that's really important to understand is Black people came to this planet from space. Okay. This is not me saying it, not Billy Carson saying this. I implore anybody, go on, get a passport, hop on a plane, go to Australia, sit with the Aboriginal elders, and they will tell you their handed down verbal history that they were the first Black people on this planet before other people came here or arrived here. And they were brought here by Pleiadians, that they came from space. Go to the Dogon tribe, now living in Mali. The Dogon were the original inhabitants of the land of Chem. They reached a golden age before anybody else reached the golden age after the Great Flood. They were one of the very first civilizations to reach the golden age. Thoth, when Thoth went there after the flood, he taught the Dogons how to become highly technological again until they reached their golden age and they were overthrown, and then they moved to Mali, Africa. But ask them. They already know about it as well. They say that people came from space and taught them the knowledge and the wisdom. This is handed down verbal history. So when you travel around the world and you go to these ancient cultures and you talk to these people, why don't they have the same story? Somebody came from space to Earth and taught them this information, and they weren't gods. They were flesh and blood people that interacted with them and brought them knowledge, and they left them with the wisdom and knowledge from the stars. And I believe that Black people came here from space. And so when people hear me talking about aliens, they always thinking about some little gray man. I'm talking about us. I think that there's a lot of Black people flying these spaceships that people see all in the skies. There's now been millions of sightings, millions, not dozens, not thousands, millions of sightings. And I think that a lot of them are flown by Black people. Just my personal opinion.
When I do my research in terms of finding out information, and they call this information New Age information. When I go, like, let's say I'm on Gaia, and I done watched a lot of videos on Gaia before, and I hear, what we would call the white New Age community. They always talk about, like you mentioned, Pleiades and the Palladians and the Palladian star system. You would hear, I forget their names, but you would just hear all of them always talking about Pleiades. Yeah. Then when I go to like what we would call the Black New Age community, they always talk about Sirius star system, Sirius. So I hear one group always mention how we come from Sirius. I hear another group always mention how they come from Pleiades. Is that because we really one comes from Sirius and one really comes from Pleiades?
The truth is that when you go into some really ancient texts, some old Tibetan texts, you find out that there was a galactic war in the Pleiadian star system. A lot of pretty much all the races come from that one area. That area is not just 7 stars, even though we call it the 7 sisters. There's really thousands of stars that had literally hundreds of thousands of planets in that region. But that war was so bad, according to even the Vedas and the Mahabharata, they used something called a Brahmahanda weapon that can destroy people on 3 worlds. It was a planet destroyer. It was like the Death Star from Star Wars. They would blow up planets.
Damn.
It was crazy stuff. And so when planets would explode, imagine huge chunks of planets now floating through space, hitting other planets. So it created a huge mess in that sector of the galaxy. And people started, whoever had the ability to get the hell out of there, they started getting in ships and getting the hell out of there. So they were like space refugees. Some people went to Sirius. Some people, stay with your kind, your same kind. Some people ended up in Orion. Some people ended up in Aldebaran. Some people ended up in some people ended up on this planet named that guy calls Rizik or Riz, but it's also called Nibiru.
Yeah. Right.
It's called that in the Enuma Elish. It's called Nibiru. And also in the more modern version of the story in Sumeria, they call it Marduk. Marduk took the name Nibiru off and put his name on because he wanted to be the destroyer. So, but some people landed on that planet that got gravitationally locked into our solar system and went on this weird, crazy orbit. So you have all these different races of people. And what's interesting in these texts, this is why I tell people to read these texts. They describe what these people look like. So there's so many different descriptions of these people. It leads you to understand that they weren't just one race of people. There were black people who had looked like us. There were people that were more like, what do you call the people with no melanin, but they're black? They're albinos. They had albino people. Their skin was like albino people, but their features were African. And their hair, their eyebrows were blonde. Their hair was blonde. They had blue eyes. We know that there's people in Melanesia right now that look just like those people. There's people darker than me with blue eyes, blonde hair, and they're dark black as this microphone. And then there was also people that looked like Caucasian. There were people that looked like Asians. And there were also people that were a couple different colors. There were people that looked yellow, more like indigenous Native Americans. And then there were also people that looked green and blue. There were two different weird colors. And that's recorded in the ancient Egyptian text, the glyphs, and the Egyptian Book of the Dead, and even in the glyphs in Egypt. So you had this multiracial civilization going on all at once on the planet. A combination, even one of the tablets, one of these kings marries a woman from another planet. Okay, I mean, this is crazy stuff. But this all started because of some crazy ass war that took place where people were literally blowing planets up, in another sector.
You said space refugees.
Space refugees, yes.
Wow. Oh man. You talk a lot about Tahuti. You have the book. What's your website again? People get your book.
ForbiddenKnowledge.com with the number 4 BIDDENKNOWLEDGE, ForbiddenKnowledge.com. Compendium of the Emerald Tablets. It's a bestseller now for 2.5 years straight.
Okay, so we talked about how these movies are maybe influenced by frequencies that already exist. Also, we know that Hollywood has, some of the people in Hollywood have access to some ancient knowledge that maybe the general public doesn't have access to. Just like Star Wars may have studied ancient civilizations. The creator, what's George Lucas, and that may have influenced, the movie production of Star Wars and the characters in Star Wars. When we deal with Tahuti, some people say that in Marvel, Thor is a representation of Tahuti. Tahuti, even a hammer connected with lightning, all that's a representative Tahuti. So do you see, in your study and research, do you see similarities between the Marvel character Thor and Tahuti? Yeah,
they do. All these Hollywood writers, they study these ancient tablets and texts like crazy, because that's where they know that 90% of the world has never seen them, heard of them, and if they did, they won't even take the time to read them. So they know they got great stories just sitting there. They don't have to even think too hard. They can literally go to these tablets and texts and create movies, right? George Lucas became a trillionaire damn near off of the Terra Papers. That's where his story comes from.
Which is
it's an ancient Native American historical paper like the Enuma Elish, but the Native American version. Okay, and so it's been handed down by chiefs, Hopi chiefs, over and over for many generations, and it's an ancient epic of the creation of people on other planets and how their rise to becoming a spacefaring race, the different versions of humanoids that exist in the galaxy, and how they eventually went to war and separated into two factions and became a republic and it's great. It's the whole Star Wars saga. Okay, it's the whole Star Wars saga. All he did was added some love stories and a couple different characters to it, and some esoteric wisdom statements, and boom, he had a whole movie series. So this is what they do. Now, Thor definitely is known in ancient times as being the same person as Tahuti, right? So it's the same person. And so it's funny because they understand this, they study this, they read this, and then what do? They just add their flavor to it and turn it into a TV show, a movie, a character, and then they can parlay it because why? Nobody even knows about this stuff. Nobody's put the connections together.
What do you think about I was talking recently with a couple of guests that I had on about this idea that Saturn used to be the central sun to this planet in antiquity, and then when Saturn fell, the sun that we see now, which is a young sun, came to be in the central sun. But the people who are in control know Saturn used to be the central sun, so they still worship Saturn even in Saturn's fallen state.
That's an interesting theory. I mean, my study of astrophysics, I can't really fully go with that context, just because when you study the makeup of Saturn, you discover that it doesn't have enough mass to actually be a sun. Jupiter doesn't even have enough mass to be a sun. There's not enough to create nuclear fusion at the core, which will create a sun. However, the Saturn is worshipped and always has been worshipped, and it has something to do with these ancient beings. And what's interesting is when you read Norman Berggrun's book, The Rings of Saturn, that book is so hard to find. If you get a copy on Amazon, it's usually like about $800 to $1,000 for one copy.
You got that book? You got it?
I have one. Yeah.
Okay.
And if The Rings of Saturn, Norman Berggrun. Now, who is Norman Berggrun? His resume, I'll read it for you, but it will take me 30 minutes to read his whole resume. This guy was the head of Lockheed, Ames Research, NACA before it became NASA. This guy was the head physicist and scientist for all the major programs of advancement in science and rocketry and everything else. All the top secret technologies that had to be developed went through him. This guy's his resume is off the charts. This guy is the guy that wrote the book, The Rings of Saturn. According to him, in one of the mission images that he was watching, because he had access to the control room, there are people that were building and controlling some type of structures that were on rings of Saturn, as well as artificial objects, he claims, that were doing something in the rings. So whoever these people are, according to him, they must be super ancient and super, super high tech. And if we're going back into antiquity, could it be that these quote unquote gods who came from that region of space, who were doing something with Saturn, created this Saturnian worship, created this Saturnian belief system and had people worshiping them because they claimed that they came from there and they had all these what appeared to be maybe superpowers. I'm hypothesizing. I'm not saying these are facts. These are things that I don't have any textual context to bring you back to. I don't have any verifiable links or sources. Only thing I have is the book from Norman Berggrun that he actually has pictures in his book that he took from NACA when the images came down, and they're incredible. That's all I can tell you. If you can get your hands on that book, it's one of the most mind-blowing books, one of the most mind-blowing things you're ever going to see. And this is the guy that said he saw 7-foot-tall black people getting out of a ship when Buzz Aldrin walked on the moon.
Yeah. Yeah, we was just watching that video last week on my channel when him saying that. The way he said it, he was like he was moving around. He was like, no, they were black. He was like, yo. It was
Black
like
people. He got like
his
got
eyes.
the honor. Yeah, his eyes got big. He was like, oh, listen, black. He said black.
No, that video, that's classic.
Yeah.
That video is classic. If y'all seen the video with the brother Yaki, he played it about a week ago. Yeah. Man, Billy, do you believe there's a galactic, just like we have a government here on Earth? Is there like a galactic federation of light, or that exists in the cosmos that's overwatching all the planets and making sure idiots from this planet don't drop atomic bombs or whatever? Does that exist?
I believe it wholeheartedly that there's a galactic federation that exists. It's something that has been talked about by a lot of high elites for a very long time, even open and publicly. And this federation is watching us. And the evidence of this, if you watch the disclosure event that happened, I think it was 2010, it was the press club where I think it was a total of 30 or 40 former U.S. military soldiers and scientists that were in control of nuclear arms for the United States military went to testify that there were UFOs coming to the military bases directly over the nuclear silos and deactivating the nuclear codes. Okay, and they even had protocol for when these things arrive, what they should and shouldn't do, where they should go, how long they had to stay underneath until everything left. This is an incredible. This is on Forbidden Knowledge TV. If you want to watch the whole 1.5 hour press club from 2010, all verified former military. These are the most hardest jobs to get. The guy that had the key codes to the nukes came on and said that UFOs came to the base and deactivated the nukes. What are they doing? They're sending us a message. They're letting us know that no matter what we think we can do, no matter how bad we think we are, they're not going to let us launch anymore. We had a couple of these bombs drop. That was it. Those signals, those frequencies from those bombs went out into space, alerted them. They came here and said, oh, wait a minute. We got to put a lockdown on this planet. These guys are doing too much. Too much. They're not taking it. They're not, because right now we're so childish, right? And we're not even ready to go into space with weapons. So the first thing we'd do is we'd go somewhere and we'd blow up another civilization and try to steal their planet. I mean, look what we do. We do it here. We go to other countries and we blow the people up and we kill them and we take all their resources. That's what we're doing on Earth. So why would we stop here? If we can go in space and do it, we do it there too. So they're going to stop us and they're going to let us know, look, you guys ain't going to do this. You could do it to yourselves, but you ain't going to do it out here. So they sent us a message.
You talk often about us not being from here, us coming from somewhere else, being extraterrestrial and aliens, whatever you want to word you want to use. What about when you study ancient Egypt and you see about how much they revered the cat? Does the cat? I've heard people say that the cat is an extraterrestrial as well. That it's not native to Earth, and that's why spiritual people usually like cats around them. You ever heard anything about that?
Oh yeah, I have. Yeah, cats are. Well, they used to mummify the cats. I mean, they take the cats to the grave with them. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, they big on cats.
Yeah, when the pharaoh died, the cat got to die too.
Yeah,
and, you know what I'm saying? Because they want to come back and take the cat with them. And they weren't thinking about going to no solar boat into sky heaven. They were thinking about being reincarnated by being recloned with their DNA. That was the whole mummification process, was all about keeping the DNA good enough to when their gods who told them that the mummification process, they were going to come back. They promised they would come back and they would take their DNA and reclone them. This is why they put all their wealth and their animals inside that tomb with them.
Right.
Because they knew they couldn't take it into no afterlife. That's all a myth. What they thought was they'd be recloned, they'd come back in a brand new body, and then their family and their dogs and their cat, everybody would be there with them, and they'd be able to take their riches and all the jewels and everything they buried with them they'll use that for wealth. But these cats are multidimensional beings. They have the ability the way that they're wired to tap into higher dimensions. That's why cats can see things that we can't even see. They can see. They start looking around. They can see. They're interacting with other dimensional beings. They're interacting with higher dimensional things that are going on. And so that's why people keep cats around, because they thought they were getting an insight into danger, premonitions, predictions, prophecy by following these cats and watching the cats' behaviors.
Indeed.
Yeah,
man, such an interesting conversation. I want to take about 2 or 3 questions, then we're gonna get out of here, family. But one thing, Billy, man, just having these conversations with you, and every time I study or research this, this type of galactic talk, man, I really miss. I think I told you this when I was young. I would always have these reoccurring dreams of a war going on in the cosmos, and you're young, so you don't articulate it to nobody. And I never told my mother, I never told anybody. I just kept it to myself. But I always woke up from this dream of this war going on. I mean, I used to see huge fireballs or technology, these weapons. And I'm like, damn, why do I keep having these dreams that I'm in the cosmos and there's this war going on? And I wish I could tap back into that now and try to, now that I'm older and I could do some research and this and that. But I never have these dreams again. I would dream about the stars, all types of stuff when I was young. And now it's hard for me. I rarely have those dreams, man. But when I was young, it was all the time, Billy. But now it's just like, it's a wrap for that, man. And I'm like, shit, man, I wish I could tap into that now, man.
I know what you mean. Yeah. When you're younger, man, it's easier to tap into those things because the mind isn't overworked with so much clutter. The older you get, I'm multitasking 50 things in my head all the time consistently. And when you're younger, you're not multitasking all those things. So you have time to tap into multidimensionality, dreams, premonitions, and all those things, because your mind's not overcluttered with so many to-dos. Like right now, I got to go pack. And that's all I'm thinking. My brain's thinking, you got to go pack. You got to go pack. I haven't packed one thing yet. I got to leave. So, it's we're cluttered right now. So that is what's holding us, from as we get older, it's holding us back from seeing those higher dimensions and those dreams and those prophecies and everything else. We're just too much information overload.
The clutter, all the clutter in our mind.
Too much clutter.
Wow.
Yeah, man.
Let's take 2 more questions. I forgot Billy got to get out of here, family. He got a flight early in the morning. Let me see. Let me get rid of a few trolls first. And
got some crazy trolls in here.
Yeah. They come out.
He's on Gaia. Yeah, I'm on Gaia. And every show that I'm on Gaia, not one show is talking about white aliens. I'm talking about ancient civilizations and the mystery of megalithic structures, or I'm talking about technology. I'm not on any other shows on that thing. And a couple of talk shows where I'm talking about my life story and talking about financial literacy. Be happy that I'm on there. I'm actually representing properly.
Indeed. Trying to let me just ask you, do you think there are consequences? I think consequences for trying to harm the sun. I think you kind of already touched on.
You don't want to harm the sun. I mean, the sun. We can't harm the sun. The sun is super massive. Number one. Number two. The sun is in its middle age right now. The sun is 5 billion years old. In another 5 billion years, it's going to start the death process. It's going to become a red giant. And it's going to swallow up all the inner planets. So it'll swallow up Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, and Ceres will all be swallowed and will be vaporized. This is why it's important to become a spacefaring race and create breakaway civilizations. If you think you're going to stay on your planet forever, you're wrong. It's never going to happen nowhere in the universe. You must be able to break away and create a new civilization, because stars live and die just like human beings live and die.
Billy, how do you distinguish between what is real and what is not?
Well, it's all about discernment. The first thing you have to do is you have to do a lot of research. And I would spend some time, hours, researching one topic. Like it could take me sometimes 2 or 3 days because, you can't research 4 or 5 hours consecutively. So, because you got other things to do. But I'll take 30 minutes, 40 minutes, an hour here, an hour there. And I go from multiple sources, multiple angles. And then after I get as many pieces of the puzzle as I possibly can to analyze it, then I got to sit back and meditate on it for a minute. And then I got to look at conflicting reports. Who says it's not this, or who says it's not that, and where are their sources from? Who are they? What's their background? It's a big process to understand what's real and what's not. Do you get it right all the time? No. There's no way everybody can be right all the time. That's impossible because we're human, and human beings are not perfect. So the only thing you can do is the best you can, but you got to put the best effort and the best foot forward. I think that's the best thing you can do.
Last one. I lost it all, man. I lost the question, but somebody was asking about, okay, yeah. Is there a black sun that lights the moon? I heard our sun doesn't give light to our moon. That's interesting because I've heard recently that first I heard that the moon was a reflection of the sunlight. Then recently I've read that online that the light from the moon has been found to not be the same light from the sun. So what's your thoughts on that, Billy?
Yeah, no. I mean, I study astrophysics. The sun itself is emanating radiation. That radiation is beaming out on solar winds throughout the entire solar system, throughout space itself. Those photons travel for billions of light years. I mean, they never stop traveling. The sun is 8 light minutes away from Earth. So if you turn the sun off, if you had that capability, it would take 8 minutes before the light went off on Earth. It's 8 light minutes away, but the sun itself is what's illuminating the surface of the moon, and the surface of the moon is just reflecting that light back. The moon is comprised of helium-3 on the surface, which is a phenomenal energy source. It's clean burning energy that only emits steam, and it's enough of it to really power the entire planet for 1 billion years, Earth, if we can mine it. But that is a highly reflective substance, and so that's what you're seeing. You're just seeing radiation bouncing off the moon.
Last question, last one. Billy, did you ever remote view Thoth?
That's a good question. I never remote view Thoth. I've actually never even tried to do it, to be honest with you. I feel like I have so much knowledge from the study of the Emerald Tablet singular and the Emerald Tablets plural, as well as all the Hermetic and Kemetic principles and all the study of the ancient civilizations, that a fractal of his knowledge is already inside of my brain. Just like anything you digest, a fractal of that knowledge is in your brain. So I studied so much of it. There's so many fractals of the information. It's like it's a part of me now.
Okay, indeed. Leave your contact information one more time. Tell them, that presentation that you just showed tonight, you have tons of videos. I mean, your website, I think Forbidden Knowledge TV is loaded with amazing videos on there. So tell them about your website, your streaming site, actually, Billy.
My streaming site is forbiddenknowledge.tv, or you can go to 4bk.tv. 3 little letters, 4bk.tv. There's 5,200 shows up there, great documentaries, great TV shows, phenomenal topics, and I think are very important as well for Black people. I've got the Egyptian Mystery School, which is 39 episodes. I've got series where I talk about epigenetics in Blacks, how to reprogram your DNA. We have a Black psychotherapist doing a new TV show on mental health. We've got a lot of great shows. We have a Black literacy guy coming on to do a whole TV series on financial literacy. So a lot of great shows for every race. But of course, I want to see Black people excel a lot more, because we are the ones so far that have been left out of a lot of things, and we're just trying to play catch up now. And so this TV network I got is way more diverse. There's a lot of networks out there that are trying to do conscious shows, but it's completely whitewashed. I mean, let's just call it what it is. It's whitewashed information. And so I wanted a more diverse network, a network that can represent all people around the entire planet, not just one race. And we've been very successful in doing that, and it's doing phenomenal. So you can go to 4bk.tv, get a free trial, watch some of the content. If it resonates with you, come hang out with us. If it doesn't, it's okay. But all of our subscribers of Forbidden Knowledge TV will be getting my Forbidden Coin cryptocurrency on my airdrop, which starts in 2 weeks.
Dope, man. I look forward to having you back on when that drops, and we could talk more about that with your cryptocurrency coin, man. Listen, I want to thank you. I know you got a flight to catch. Once again, family, before y'all get out of here, make sure y'all hit the like button. Make sure if you haven't subscribed, make sure you subscribe. Check out Billy's website. Is 4bk.tv.
4bk.tv.
Yeah, check out the streaming site 4bk.tv for more information like you heard today on today's show. With that being said, this is Brother Rich Billy Carson. We get out of here, family. Peace. All right.